All right, and so, as we continue, our conversation is starting with the USC defense precisely because of the Alex Graham situation, and because that is in the secondary, and the secondary is obviously such a point of concern for this USC team and for this USC defense. So, when we continue the matchup between the Illinois offense and the USC defense, a lot to consider here. And so as we continue with this look at the matchup, just want to pull something up on screen here. Going to be pulling up a few things for you tonight, not just promos, but other things about the Illinois matchup. So here's a tweet. And so Jeremy Werner, covers Illinois for 247 Sports. So he's a good guy to follow if you want some inside intel on the Fighting Illini. And so this tweet right here, go to Jeremy Werner's Twitter feed. Guys are breaking down Illinois' breakdowns in pass protection against Indiana. So Ethan, Crash, obviously a real opportunity for USC's defensive line to eat against this Illinois offensive line. And it's going to have to be really, I think, the centerpiece of this USC defense against Illinois, because the secondary is weak. The pass rush needs to get home, and the pass rush needs to really get on top of this game, because as we saw against Purdue, like a quick passing game where the quarterback's getting rid of the ball early can be effective. USC corners haven't shown that they can really put the clamps down even on very quick timing routes and everything. So USC fans, you can follow Jeremy Werner for this kind of breakdown. And so as I turn it back to Ethan and Crash, any particular points of emphasis in terms of this tension between the pass rush needing to be the leader of this defense and the secondary obviously needing to step up. What things can Danton Lynn and the rest of the defensive brain trust emphasize in this relationship between the front end and the back end? Ethan first, Crash second.
Sure. So in kind of doing my deep dive on Luke Altmaier before this podcast, I learned that he really doesn't do very good under pressure at all. He has a 34.1% pressure to sack percentage, which is the second worst in the Power Four. So basically, if you get pressure in his face, you're likely to bring him down, because he doesn't do very well, once guys break through the offensive line. And then we have obviously seen, and you've obviously talked about, how Illinois' offensive line hasn't been playing very well anyway. So I think, it's Luke Altmaier is not a guy who's going to burn you, I don't feel like, and hasn't shown the ability to through these number of games. He's not going to burn you if you rush a couple extra guys and if you rush a couple extra guys effectively and you get in his face, it doesn't seem like he's going to burn you for having less guys in the secondary, because he hasn't really done that so far. In the Indiana game, they had 7 sacks on him, which was a big reason why they were able to kind of limit the Illinois offense. And I feel like also, just from what I've seen from Altmaier this year, he seems to be kind of a conservative quarterback and not really taking a lot of risks, because he hasn't thrown any picks like Maava, and he has the same amount of touchdowns as Maava, but he's like 9th at the Big Ten in yards. But he still has a pretty high completion percentage. So it seems like the reason why he's getting brought down and sacked so much is because he's holding onto the ball a lot and he's not really taking any risks in the secondary. So I think, if similarly to the Purdue game, if the USC defense can sort of limit the big plays and cover the Illinois receivers for long enough that, the pass rush can get in Altmaier's face, then the USC defense is going to have a great day, and Altmaier's not going to have a great day. If there's really big significant issues in the secondary where they're blowing coverages, or guys are getting wide open and Altmaier can make easy throws, then I think we have more of an issue. But I feel good about what USC's defensive strategy should be going into this game, because it seems like if they play a very similar game to what they played against Purdue, but hopefully with some slightly improved secondary play and slightly improved coverages, then they should do really well.
So I think that USC's really got to put the pressure early on Illinois and really try to break through their O-line, which especially seemed like was not very solid and strong in keeping Luke Altmaier protected. And if you just look at the stats from that last game, Indiana's D-line was feasting. They had 7 sacks on the Illini quarterbacks. So just that shows just how much they were just quickly able to just break through and really just get to the quarterback, which I think is going to be a crucial part of this game. And USC is going to need to take advantage of that O-line that appears very weak, especially after that beat down by the Hoosiers, to really just put a ton of pressure, like Ethan said, on Altmaier and force him into situations where he either goes down with the ball or he's just having to chuck it away and just really, just really making really just bad throws where it possibly can get picked off, especially if, should Alex Graham be playing, as we talked about previously, is able to improve and actually capitalize on those mistakes. So if the USC just comes with the pressure early, I think that can really cause Altmaier to have another really difficult game.
All right. Continuing another question with the matchup between USC's D and Illinois' O. Is there just a particular hinge point player? Like, if this USC player performs at a specific level, whether it's good or bad, that could really have a pendulum effect. It could swing this game either in the right direction or the wrong direction. A guy who's going to be looked to really be a difference maker. And if he isn't able to step up, USC could be in trouble. If you had to pick one or maybe 2 players, you can pick 2 if you want. You can double down. Where would you go? Ethan first, Crash second.
Sure. I think I'm gonna go in the secondary, just because that is, that's obviously that's been the main concern through the first few games. I really liked how DeCarlos Nicholson played in the Michigan State game. I think that he's like the only player in the secondary that I really felt pretty good about his performance, just because he was able to limit Michigan State's leading receiver so well, and Nick Marsh is basically the best receiver they've seen to this point. So for him to be able to kind of step up and even get in Nick Marsh's head a little bit, like they were kind of, there's a couple of tussles towards towards the beginning of the second half, if I remember correctly, where Nick Marsh was obviously very frustrated with DeCarlos Nicholson. So that was one way that the Michigan State offense was limited, even though they were kind of able to get the ball to some of their other receivers. It felt like Nick Marsh, didn't really have the impact that people thought that he would. So if DeCarlos Nicholson can step up, especially if, you have Alex Graham back in the game, you just don't want, if Altmaier's stressed and he's, kind of floundering around and, under pressure, which we know he doesn't do good under pressure. You don't want him to look up and see, Illinois' number 1 receiver wide open, and, him to just kind of have that guy to be able to, kind of bail him out of those kind of situations. So I think if DeCarlos Nicholson can step up and have a really big game, that would be huge for USC. And then I think a guy who has been playing well that I think it would be huge if he continues to play well for USC is Anthony Lucas, just because he doesn't put up a ton of numbers in terms of sacks, but he's so consistently this year gotten pressure on the QB. And I think I feel like if there's anyone on the USC roster who if I'm Eric Henderson or I'm Danton Lynn and I need to turn to somebody and say, go make Luke Altmaier's day difficult, and I know that he can do that on a consistent basis, I feel like Anthony Lucas is the guy. So it'd probably be those 2 for me.
I think a guy I want to see really step up who could really, be a big disruptor in the game is Eric Gentry. Gentry, I think, has been probably one of the best players USC's had just ever since he got here with Lincoln Riley. I think you've seen just the impact he's had on this defense, whether or not the talent and personnel around him on the field was good or bad. And that was especially evident if it was bad and Gentry was injured. So last year, I think we saw just how much the defense missed Gentry in those key losses in those, final like plays when USC ultimately would break in those late games. So I think Eric Gentry is going to be the key for this game because of just how versatile he is, how he can kind of play pretty much anywhere and help both the front, the D line, and in the secondary. So I think for that reason, I'm looking for Gentry to have a big game and just really to cause as much chaos for the Illini offense as he can, both just by pressuring just in both the pass rush and protecting against the deep ball as